You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. Everyone can see how much you're faking it. That voice in your head, the one that never shuts up, the one that tells you you're too much or not enough, that points out every flaw, every mistake, every reason why you should be ashamed. That's not you. That's your inner critic, and it's been running your life for longer than you realize. Today, we're going to talk about where that voice actually came from, why your brain built it, and what it's been doing to you all these years. Because once you understand the psychology behind your inner critic, everything changes. Most people think that voice is them. They think it's their own thoughts, their own judgment, their truth about themselves. But it's not. It's a construct. A program that got installed in your mind before you were old enough to question it. And now it's so automatic, so constant, that you don't even notice it anymore. You just live with this running commentary of criticism, shame, and fear. You make decisions based on it. You hold yourself back because of it. You carry this weight around like it's just part of being you. But here's what you need to understand. That voice is not reality. It's not wisdom. And it's definitely not trying to help you. It's a psychological defense mechanism that went rogue. And we're about to break down exactly how that happened. Let's start by getting clear on what we're actually talking about. Your inner critic is that negative voice in your head that judges you, criticizes you, compares you to others, and tells you all the ways you're failing. It's the voice that says you're stupid when you make a mistake, that says you're lazy when you rest, that says everyone is better than you, smarter than you, more successful than you. It's the voice that turns every small failure into evidence of your worthlessness, and every success into a fluke that doesn't count. And here's the thing. This voice doesn't just show up occasionally. For most people, it's constant. It's the background noise of their entire life. You wake up and it's already there, telling you that you slept too long or not well enough. You look in the mirror and it catalogs everything wrong with your appearance. You go to work and it tells you you're underperforming. You interact with people and it replays every awkward moment, every weird thing you said, every reason they probably think you're strange. It never stops. It never rests. And it's exhausting. Some people's inner critic is loud and aggressive. It screams at them. It attacks. It uses the same harsh words that were used on them as kids. Others have a quieter critic, one that whispers. That plants little seeds of doubt. That's more subtle, but just as destructive. Either way, the effect is the same. You end up living in a constant state of not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough, not worthy enough. And no matter what you achieve or how hard you try, that voice finds a way to dismiss it. So where did this come from? Because you weren't born with this voice. Babies don't have inner critics. Little kids don't wake up thinking they're failures. This is something that got built. Something that got programmed into you. And understanding where it came from is the first step to dismantling it. The psychology is clear. Your inner critic is formed in childhood. Specifically, it's formed through your early relationships with your caregivers. The voice of your inner critic is almost always the voice of someone who raised you. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad. Maybe it's a teacher, a coach, a grandparent. Whoever it was, they were the person whose approval you needed to survive. And when they criticized you, when they expressed disappointment, when they made you feel like you weren't good enough, your young brain absorbed that. It internalized it. And it turned their external criticism into your internal dialogue. Here's how it works developmentally. When you're a child, you're completely dependent on your caregivers for survival. You need them for food, shelter, safety, love. Your brain is wired to do whatever it takes to maintain that connection. So when a parent criticizes you, when they get angry, when they withdraw their love, your nervous system goes into panic mode. Because to a child, losing parental approval feels like a threat to survival. And your brain will do anything to prevent that. So what does it do? It creates an internal monitor. A voice that criticizes you before anyone else can. A voice that tries to keep you in line, that pushes you to be perfect, that scans for any behavior that might result in rejection. The logic goes like this. If I can criticize myself first, if I can catch my mistakes before they do, if I can be hypervigilant about every flaw, then maybe I can avoid their anger. Maybe I can stay safe. Maybe I can keep their love. This is where the inner critic is born. Out of a child's desperate need to be accepted. Out of their fear of abandonment. Out of their attempt to control the uncontrollable. And the tragic part is, it doesn't work. Because no amount of self-criticism actually changes how other people treat you. But your brain doesn't know that. Your brain just knows that survival depends on not being rejected. So it builds this mechanism and it keeps running it over and over long after you've left that environment. Let's get specific about how this programming happens. If you had a parent who was hypercritical, who pointed out every mistake, who had impossibly high standards, your inner critic learned to be harsh. It learned that nothing you do is ever good enough. If you had a parent who was emotionally unavailable, who didn't see you, who made you feel invisible, your inner critic learned to tell you that you don't matter, that you're not worth paying attention to. If you had a parent who was anxious and overprotective, your inner critic learned to catastrophize, to see danger everywhere, to tell you the world isn't safe. Sometimes the criticism was obvious. Harsh words, punishments, direct attacks on your character. But sometimes it was more subtle. A sigh of disappointment, a comparison to a sibling, a withdrawal of affection when you didn't meet expectations. Kids are incredibly attuned to their parents' emotional states. They pick up on everything, and even small moments of criticism can get encoded into that inner voice, and it's not just parents. Teachers who shamed you, coaches who yelled at you, peers who bullied you, siblings who teased you, society's messages about what you should look like, how you should behave, what success means. All of this gets absorbed. All of this becomes part of that critical voice. By the time you're an adult, your inner critic is this composite of every criticism, every judgment, every message you received about not being enough, and it plays on repeat in your head without you even questioning whether any of it is true. Here's what most people don't understand. Your inner critic was created as a protection mechanism. It wasn't trying to hurt you. It was trying to save you. Your brain genuinely believed that if it could just criticize you enough, push you hard enough, keep you in line, then you would be safe. You would be loved. You would be accepted. This is why the inner critic feels so automatic. Why it feels like it's just part of you. Because at one point in your development, it was adaptive. It served a purpose. The problem is it's still running that same program even though you're not a helpless child anymore. Let's talk about why your brain built this in the first place from an evolutionary perspective. Human beings are social animals. For thousands of years, being part of a group was essential for survival. If you were cast out from the tribe, you died. So our brains evolved to be extremely sensitive to social threats, to rejection, to criticism, to anything that might jeopardize our place in the group. And one way the brain handles this is by creating an internal voice that keeps you in check, that makes sure you don't do anything that would get you rejected. In small doses, this can be helpful. A little bit of self-monitoring keeps you from doing things that are genuinely harmful or antisocial. But for most people, the inner critic goes way beyond that. It becomes this tyrannical force that doesn't just keep you in check. It keeps you small. It keeps you scared. It keeps you from taking risks, from being yourself, from going after what you actually want. Because the inner critic's primary goal is not your happiness or your growth. Its primary goal is keeping you safe. And to the inner critic, safe means invisible, means perfect, means never making a mistake that could result in rejection. Now, let's look at the different forms your inner critic takes, because it's not just one voice. It's multiple voices, multiple strategies, all aimed at the same goal of keeping you in line. Understanding these different types helps you recognize when your inner critic is active. There's the perfectionist. This is the voice that tells you nothing you do is ever good enough. That demands flawless performance. That sees any mistake as proof of your inadequacy. The perfectionist inner critic drives you to work yourself into the ground, and then tells you that you're still not doing enough. There's the comparer. This voice is constantly measuring you against other people. It tells you that everyone else is more successful, more attractive, more talented, more together than you are. It turns life into a competition that you're always losing. The compare keeps you feeling inferior no matter what you achieve because there's always someone doing better. There's the catastrophizer. This voice predicts disaster. It tells you that everything will go wrong, that you'll fail, that people will reject you, that you can't handle what's coming. The catastrophizer keeps you in a state of constant anxiety, always preparing for the worst-case scenario. There's the taskmaster. This voice tells you that rest is laziness, that if you're not productive every moment, you're worthless. The taskmaster drives you relentlessly and makes you feel guilty for having needs or taking breaks. And there's the underminer. This is the subtle voice that plants doubt. That tells you you're a fraud. That any success you've had was luck, and eventually everyone will figure out that you don't know what you're doing. The underminer specializes in imposter syndrome, making you feel like you don't belong anywhere you've succeeded. Most people have multiple versions of these running at once, and the voice can shift depending on the situation. But the common thread is always the same. The inner critic is never on your side. It's never encouraging. It's never compassionate. It only knows how to criticize, judge, and create fear. So, what is this actually doing to you? Let's get real about the damage. Your inner critic affects every area of your life. It impacts your mental health. People with harsh inner critics have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. When you're constantly being told you're not good enough, your brain starts to believe it. And that belief creates real emotional pain. It affects your relationships. When your inner critic tells you you're not worthy of love, you either push people away before they can reject you, or you stay in relationships that aren't good for you because you don't think you deserve better. You have trouble receiving compliments or affection because your inner critic immediately dismisses them as lies or pity. It affects your career and your goals. The inner critic keeps you playing small. It tells you not to apply for that job, not to start that business, not to share your work with the world. It creates procrastination because if you never finish, you never have to face the possibility of failure. Or it drives you to overwork and burnout because you're trying to prove your worth through achievement, but no achievement is ever enough. It affects your physical health. The constant stress of living with a critical voice keeps your nervous system activated. Your body stays in fight or flight mode, which leads to inflammation, digestive issues, chronic pain, and a weakened immune system. The inner critic literally makes you sick, and maybe worst of all, it robs you of presence. When you're constantly being judged by that voice, you can't fully enjoy anything. You can't be in the moment because you read too busy analyzing how you read performing in that moment. You can't celebrate wins because the critic immediately moves the goalpost. You can't relax because relaxation feels like failure. Let's look at what's happening in your brain. Neuroscience shows us that the inner critic is associated with specific neural pathways that get reinforced over time. Every time you have a self-critical thought, you're strengthening that pathway. You're making it easier for your brain to go there again. It's like walking the same trail through the woods over and over until it becomes a deep groove. That groove becomes your default route. The inner critic activates the same parts of your brain that respond to external threats. Your amygdala, the fear center, lights up. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thinking, goes offline. This is why you can't just think your way out of it. You can't logic yourself out of self-criticism because when the inner critic is active, you're not in the rational part of your brain. You're in the survival part. And that part only knows fear and defense. But here's the good news. Brains are neuroplastic. They can change. They can form new pathways. And that means you can weaken the inner critic's grip and strengthen different voices. Voices of compassion, encouragement, and truth. It takes practice. It takes consistency. But it's absolutely possible. So how do you actually start changing this? First, you have to learn to recognize the inner critic. You have to start noticing when it's active. Most people are so fused with that voice that they don't even realize it's happening. Start paying attention to your thoughts. When you notice judgment, criticism, or harsh language directed at yourself, pause. Label it. Say to yourself, that's my inner critic talking. This simple act of recognition creates distance. It reminds you that this voice is not you. It's a part of you. A part that learned to protect you but is now causing harm. Second, you need to separate from it. One powerful technique is to give your inner critic a name or an image. Some people imagine it as a stern parent or a mean teacher. When you externalize it, when you see it as something outside yourself, it loses some of its power. You can talk back to it. You can question it. You can say, "Thanks for trying to protect me, but I don't need this right now." Third, practice self-compassion. This is the hardest part for most people because self-compassion feels foreign. It feels weak or self-indulgent. But research shows that self-compassion is actually more effective than self-criticism at motivating change and growth. When you treat yourself with kindness, when you respond to your failures and flaws with understanding instead of judgment, you create safety. And when you feel safe, you can actually grow. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend who's struggling. Ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? Not what should I be doing, not how am I failing, but what do I need? Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need encouragement. Maybe you just need someone to say, "You're doing okay." You can be that person for yourself. This is not about positive affirmations or pretending everything is fine. This is about building a new voice. A voice of truth and compassion that can counter the critic. A voice that can say, "Yes, I made a mistake, and that's okay because humans make mistakes." A voice that can say, "I'm struggling right now, and that doesn't make me weak." A voice that can see you clearly without the distortion of shame and fear. The inner critic has been running your life for years, maybe decades. It's not going to disappear overnight. But every time you recognize it, every time you question it, every time you choose a different response, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new pathways. And over time, the critic gets quieter, not because you've defeated it or destroyed it, but because you've taken away its power. You've stopped believing that it's telling you the truth. You were not born hating yourself. You learned it. And what was learned can be unlearned. The voice that tears you down is not your voice. It's the echo of people who didn't know how to love you the way you needed to be loved. It's the internalization of a world that profits from your insecurity. It's a protection mechanism that outlived its usefulness. And you don't have to carry it anymore. You deserve to live without that constant judgment. You deserve to make mistakes and not see them as evidence of your unworthiness. You deserve to rest without guilt, to be imperfect without shame, to exist without constantly proving your value. And the only way to get there is to stop treating your inner critic like it's telling you the truth and start treating it like what it is. A scared part of you that learned the wrong lesson about how to be safe in the world. The work is not to silence it completely. The work is to stop letting it be in charge. To build other voices, stronger voices, kinder voices, and to live from those instead. That's when you finally become free. Hit subscribe if this resonated with you.